Hi, this is Michelle Caskey from Homeschool-Your-Boys.com. Do you remember those days when your kids were little and you would sit on the couch with them and you would cuddle up and you would have a big stack of picture books and you would read to them for hours? And it was wonderful and it was a really great bonding time and it was super enjoyable. And then your kids started to get a little bit older, and if you're perhaps like I am, you were super excited that they finally could read on their own, and you would have them read to you, and that was great. And then eventually they got even better at reading, and the next thing you know, they were off in their room, cuddled up on their bed or in a little reading nook, and they were reading to themselves. And that was a wonderful part of the learning process. But perhaps you've longed for those days when your kids were little and you would have that great time together when you were just reading books and sharing that adventure. Well, what if I told you that you don't actually have to give that up? It's actually better if we continue reading aloud to our children. Now, I'm not saying don't have them do the reading to you or the reading on their own, but reading aloud to our older kids is actually beneficial. Several years back, I went to a homeschool convention and I was privileged to be able to hear Andrew Pudewa from Institute for Excellence in Writing and also Sally Clarkson. And they both had a very similar message, and that message was that we should be continuing to read aloud to our older kids, even after they're able to read on their own. And what they said is that when we're reading books to them that are just a little bit above what they could comfortably read on their own, then our kids are going to hear complicated, correct English patterns, and it will build their vocabulary. And it also helps our kids to be able to write and speak more correctly. Now, if you think about it, our kids probably aren't hearing correct English usage when they are texting their friends or when they're on Facebook or even when they're hearing the TV or radio, frankly. But when they're hearing books that are being read to them, then they are getting those correct English phrases and terminology and vocabulary, and it's a very good learning experience for them. So I know how busy our days can be for homeschoolers. We have lots of things we're trying to jam into our days. And I don't want you to get discouraged when you hear me telling you that you should be reading aloud to your older kids, especially if you feel that you just don't have time to do it. And I know for a while I tried to add reading aloud into our homeschool day, and I failed at it miserably. Most days we had to skip it because I just didn't have the time left at the end of the day. But a tip that Andrew and Sally both recommended is if I was willing to start our day with read aloud and then fill in with the rest of the subjects, that would be one way for me to make sure that I got that time in every day. Now, how can you justify starting out with reading aloud? Another thing that Andrew Pudewa said was that if we were to take a break from all of our regular studies and instead simply read aloud to our children throughout the day, that they would actually be farther ahead academically than if we didn't read aloud to them at all and had them do all of their other subjects for that year. And that really hit me, how important it is for us to be spending that time with our kids reading aloud to them. So once I heard that, I decided it was time to make reading aloud to my older kids a priority. And the other awesome thing is that there are more than just academic benefits with reading aloud to our kids. It's actually a great way for us to bond, to have some wonderful shared memories, and just to put a little bit of fun and relaxation into our day. So I recommend that if you haven't been reading aloud to your older kids, that you start. And if you've been trying to read aloud to your older kids, but you've been having a hard time fitting it into your day, that you actually begin your homeschool day with Read Aloud and see how that goes. And if you would love to read aloud to your kids, but you really don't have any ideas about what books would be good ones to read to them, then I've actually written a blog post that has 79 different read aloud books that boys love. So I will link to that in the description for this video, and I hope that helps you to get some great ideas. And again, this is Michelle Caskey from Homeschool-Your-Boys.com, and I hope you have a wonderful day.